Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome. Welcome all. Welcome to the Kdot experience. Uh this is the experience to where you're gonna get nothing but truth. You're gonna get nothing but the best, and you're gonna get nothing but uh great, great, great programming. And we have an exciting show for you today. Um uh I am your host, DJ Kdot. Uh the host with the most. I'm also nasty on the ones and twos. And welcome, welcome, welcome everybody. So, uh, we are going to touch on the subject of qualified immunity. Um, I think it's an important subject because a lot of my viewers and even some of my peers uh, ask me about qualified immunity all the time, and they're not necessarily uh, sure what it's about. So if you could, like like my guy, Spot Check News said, can y'all please hit the like button so we can educate more people on this particular subject, and um and let's have a discussion. You know what I'm saying? Let's dive into it. I wanted to show you a few clips real quick on qualified immunity. Um, because me personally, I'm a visual learner. Um, that's how I know the best. Uh, Let me do some shout outs real quick. Spot Check News, what it do? Uh, K Do, how you doing, bro? Good morning to everybody. Rotten Apples, how you doing? Uh, how's everybody? Okay, and so let's get the likes up real quick. Get them up, get them up, get them up, so we can get started. And let's at least get to 5 people, and then I can get the show on the road. Okay, we got 5 people. All right, that's it. And please like, share, uh, subscribe if you are a new person checking out the Kdot experience uh, um, for the first time. Also, I encourage everybody to go and check out my first episode. Um, uh, bit on the subject of good versus bad policing. Um, and so you can get better educated on that particular situation. So, without further ado, we're gonna go ahead and get and everybody, can y'all hear me? Can I get a one? Am I okay? Just making sure. Can I get a one? Can everybody hear me? All right. All right. All right. Jericho, how you doing? Good morning, my brother. All right. So let's get started, and let's start this education.
You should not have some kind of blanket immunity.
When law enforcement officers break the law, they should be held accountable.
To the extent that qualified immunity fosters a sense of, it's really not my problem. Let's take a look at it.
Qualified immunity is a legal doctrine that was developed through court precedent rather than through congressional legislation. The purpose of qualified immunity is to protect government employees from frivolous litigation. However, it's become an increasingly effective shield in thousands of lawsuits that are seeking to hold cops accountable when they're accused of excessive force.
When a black man is brutally beaten, his family goes to court and tries to hold the officer accountable. Now, the law is written, says that the family can do that. It says that the victim of civil rights abuses can do that. Congress passed an act that dates back to Reconstruction. It was called the Ku Klux Klan Act. And it says very clearly that victims of state violence, civil rights abuses have the right to hold government officials accountable. The Civil Rights Act that Congress passed in 1871 created the legal violation, really, the right to sue. Qualified immunity is something that courts invented, and it says, think again. It says, we don't care about any of that. We are going to make him immune. Unless you happen to be able to point to a case that involved the same conduct and the same context, where a court told some other officer that it was wrong.
So when granting qualified immunity, judges are looking at a kind of a two-part test. First, was there a civil rights violation? And secondly, was it clearly established? But a more recent Supreme Court decision in 2009 allowed judges to skip the first part of the test and only answer, was this violation clearly established as a violation? If a certain excessive force conduct is brought before the court and dismissed from qualified immunity because it wasn't established, that also prevents it from being established for future cases.
The degree of specificity that the court has required of victims and their families to get any sort of relief or accountability in the courts is quite extraordinary. For anyone else, if you're talking about a doctor, you're talking about a construction worker who you want to hold accountable, showing that they violated the law, you can come into court, we'll hear you, we'll give you a trial. But when it comes to police officers, when it comes to state officials, don't even try that. You better be able to show us a case where we said this specific conduct was wrong. The degree of specificity that the court has required of victims and their families to get any sort of relief or accountability in the courts is quite extraordinary. There's a case that went up to the Supreme Court recently that the Supreme Court declined to hear, and it involved sicking an attack dog on an individual. And in that case, there actually was a prior case. A man had already surrendered, and an officer nonetheless sicked the attack dog on that man, and the court said that is a constitutional violation. And what the lawyers for the police argued in this case was, well, but in that case, the man was laying face down when he had surrendered. And in this new case, he was sitting with his arms up. And that distinction is sufficiently relevant to say that this officer should get immunity.
Our team of reporters read through hundreds and hundreds of lawsuits, and we found that not only is qualified immunity a very common outcome, but that it's been getting easier and easier for police to have lawsuits thrown out because of qualified immunity. And we're seeing that this is especially true in cases where the judge rules that the rights were violated, but they're still granting qualified immunity. From 2005 to 2007, we were looking at cases where defense raises a qualified immunity defense. And in those cases, there was a qualified immunity ruling that favored the police in only 44% of cases. But in the more recent years, from 2017 to 2019, the ruling on qualified immunity favored police 57%, more than half the time. And there have been a number of Supreme Court rulings in that period in between that made it much more difficult for plaintiffs to overcome qualified immunity. It's a pretty growingly controversial doctrine, even within the Supreme Court itself. For example, Sotomayor in particular has been outspoken in some of her dissents, writing, for example, in one, it's telling police that they can, quote, shoot first and think later, and it tells the public that palpably unreasonable conduct will go unpunished.
This bill also removes qualified immunity for police officers. That means any police officer could be dragged into civil court by any disgruntled person they ever come in contact with. And we all agree bad cops shouldn't be able to hide behind qualified immunity.
A year ago, I would have said, the Supreme Court is the only audience that is really paying attention here, but that's not true today.
There's been a lot more attention at the congressional level in discussing what could happen to the doctrine next, whether to reform it or abolish it.
The House has passed a bill that would end qualified immunity.
The resolution is adopted.
And it's sitting in the Senate waiting for action. Everyone would agree that Congress has the ability to say that, look, we passed the Civil Rights Act of 1871, the Ku Klux Klan Act, and we said you can sue police officers and other state officials when they violate your rights. And we meant it. We didn't write qualified immunity because we didn't intend for there to be any qualified immunity in that law.
Live streaming can be tricky, and sometimes trying to find the right software to make your streams look really professional can be a real chore. The thing I like about StreamYard is that
Okay, guys. So that pretty much stabilizes as far as qualified immunity. I also have another clip of coming up here pretty soon. But I also wanted to give you the definition of qualified immunity as well. It's so imperative that we get rid of this non-legislative mandate. It's imperative that we fight it, because at the end of the day, we're not talking about just for police. We're talking about for we're talking about city officials, judges. I mean, they're the one who came up with the damn mandate. And let me be very, very clear. Judges do not create law. Okay? Judges interpret law and make a decision on that interpretation. This was a system that was created in 1967, I believe. But at the end of the day, it was there was also a law established in 1871 from it's called the Ku Klux Klan Law or Act or whatever, and it basically states that we are allowed to sue the U.S. government for any type of wrongdoing to the people. So it's just funny how they've allowed this to go on so long, and people haven't spoke up on this, or maybe they have, but they just haven't been heard. Allowing the Supreme Court to create a mandate that violates people's right, and it's not saying that you can't sue the police. It's just saying that, oh well, if there's not clearly established case law on this, then we're not going to do anything about it. And that's wrong. That's absolutely wrong, because it's just like, well, okay, well, how can we create case law if you won't even hear the case? So I just find that real funny. And also, please like, share, subscribe to this video. Also, if you want to if you like what you're seeing so far, and if you like what you've seen in the past as far as my channel, please donate to the cause. My Cash App is $DJ123, $DJ123. Things cost money, guys, because I want to get more reports for you guys, more better equipment, so you guys can get the best content and service from yours truly. So please support the channel. So I wanted to go over real quick. So I wanted to read it off. In the United States, qualified immunity is a legal principle that grants government officials performing particular functions immunity from civil suits unless the plaintiff shows the official violated clearly established law, statutory or constitutional rights which a reasonable person would have known. It is a form of sovereignty immunity. Do you hear that shit? Now they're talking now. It's funny how police always say, "Oh, when you combat their unlawful orders," and they say, "Oh, so you're a sovereign citizen." No, that would be you, sir, or you, ma'am. Less strict than absolute immunity that is intended to protect officials who make responsible and I'm sorry, who make reasonable but mistaken judgments about open legal questions, extended but the plainly incompetent or those who knowingly violate the law. Qualified immunity applies only to government officials in civil litigations and does not protect the government itself from suits arising from official actions. The U.S. Supreme Court first introduced the qualified immunity doctrine, Pearson versus Ray, in 1967, a case litigated during the height of the civil rights movement. And if you notice, it was the height of the civil rights movement. They started noticing, like, okay, we beat a lot of people up, so we need to make a mandate to immune all of these officers who just clearly made a mistake of violating people's right by beating shit out of them. It is stated to have been originally introduced with rationale of protecting law enforcement officials from previous lawsuits and financial liability in cases where they acted in good faith in unclear legal situations. So, yeah, it's quite crazy. It's to me that we are still dealing with this crap, and it's not fair, and we need to fight like hell. And let me be very clear. It's just not we. That's why, for instance, there is a bill that did pass the House that is sitting in the Senate as we speak, and it's called the George Floyd Act. The thing is, if we get this bill passed, okay, and this is a federally uh, uh, bill. This is a federal style bill, and to where that if we're able to get this bill passed, we'll be able to have immunity all the way around, all the way around. That means everybody, not just police officers. We're talking about government officials. Your mayors, your governors are not allowed to violate your rights. They're going to be a lot more cognate of the executive decisions that they make. They have to think about everybody except themselves. That's why it's so incredibly important that we have to push our government officials, and we have to be careful who we elect. You know what I'm saying? Elections have consequences. Remember that. Let me tell you that again. Elections have consequences. So it is very important. So the people that you elect, as far as your DAs, your city council people, your Congress people, Senate, state representatives, those are important. Your judges, do your background on your judges. You can see how many complaints that have they had. You know what I'm saying? Also, when it comes to judges, you're allowed to have them disciplined as well. If you feel like their case is not your case is being unfairly treated, you can request. You can kick that judge off that case. You got to file a motion, but you got to kick that judge off that case and ask for another judge because they're they're showing maybe some type of favoritism, or maybe know the defendant that you're going against, or the plaintiff, you know. So I want to keep that in mind. Elections have consequences, so you have to be careful who you elect. You can't just, well, I don't know this person's name, I'm gonna just push it. No, do your research before you start voting. You know, it's imperative that you do your research before you start voting. And another thing that we also need to get rid of is, as well, as the electoral college. You know, that's also damaging us as well. You know, we need to have, the people need to have a genuine vote on who their next president of the United States is. You know, so I wanted to share that with you, but I wanted to get you guys real quick on this one. Let's see. Oop, not this one. Let's see. Hold on. Let me find the right one. It's a shorter clip, but we're going to share screen. Get you a different perspective on this one. There we go. Here we go. All right. Without further ado, here's the other clip.
Cases of police brutality on African Americans have sparked public uproar in recent years. These cases have called into question the practice of qualified immunity for police officers. Qualified immunity is a type of legal immunity that protects a government official from civil lawsuits. When invoked, it provides immunity from having to go through the costs of a trial. The legal concept frequently appears in cases involving police officers, but it can apply to executive branch officials. If applied, it shields officers from liability for all actions taken on the job except those that violate clearly established law. The Supreme Court invoked qualified immunity dating as far back as 1967. Its rationale was to allow officials to perform their duties without fear of constantly defending themselves against claims for damages. In other words, it was to allow those acting in good faith to carry out their job without deterrence. In 2015, the court ruled that California police were entitled to qualified immunity after they forcibly entered the room of a woman with a mental disability and shot her. In another example, the court granted qualified immunity to a University of Arizona police officer after he shot a woman who refused to drop a knife in her driveway. A recent investigation by Reuters uncovered that appeals courts grant qualified immunity to police much more than they used to. The Supreme Court may decide to reconsider the doctrine. Associate Justice Sonia Sotomayor called it an absolute shield for police officers accused of excessive force. And Associate Justice Clarence Thomas complained that the doctrine has no historical basis. Even if the justices weigh in, it's not clear whether they would abolish qualified immunity or even significantly scale it back.
Well, there you have it, people. So, I don't do this a lot, but we're going to. I would like to hear your opinions on this. So we're going to open up the panel and see if anybody else would like to discuss this. Because I don't know everything, but I will tell you the truth. I know the truth, and I do know. I know this: if you stand in your truth, no one can ever use it against you. I'm gonna repeat that again. If you stand in your truth, no one can ever use it against you. True Seeker, how you doing, brother? So I'm opening the discussion board a little bit, and I would love to hear anybody's opinion. Please click the link if you maybe you agree with qualified immunity, you know? Maybe you agree with qualified immunity, and we should keep it. Um uh Totally up to you. I don't know. I mean, but I know that in hindsight we need to get rid of it. So again, the discussion board is freeing up to where people can discuss and um, like to be invited on the show. So the link is here. I will share it again. But yeah, so it's something else, you know. It really is. It's uh let's see, check. Okay, Rotten Apple says, personally, I do not agree or participate in the left propaganda. We need a voluntary system and natural law. I agree. I'm not left or right. I'm independent. I'm unapologetically black or melanated. So anything that moves the needle forward to help black people and people of color in making them progressive, I'm for. And I'm also uh um for white allies who want to participate and help moving that forward and making sure not only that, but their rights are not violated as well. So I'm for everybody as far as moving the needle forward and coming together and having um a great conversation as far as uh getting together and really holding our government officials accountable. Because to tell you the truth, I didn't hear about qualified immunity, or at least the language, until I started watching Cop Watchers. And this is how I'm so blessed by this community, because I've learned so much from this community. I didn't really, you know a lot about my rights until this community. Um, uh, so I'm truly thankful and truly humbled uh, by this community. Seriously, I really am. So um, also, I wanted to hold on. I wanted to do something else real quick. This is for the trolls, okay? These are for the trolls, okay? Of or who has such an issue with how we dictate audits, or how we hold our public servants accountable. And this is strictly for you. Excuse me. Oh, that was the wrong phone. Okay, I thought that was the right one. Um, Sue. Let's see, where is it at? Okay. Uh, So there has been support as far as Supreme Court ruling, as far as how to keep your how to talk to your public servants, and and I would like to read that to you, and that is I believe I don't know if I have this book. Demographic versus United States 322 US 665 1944. And it states public servants and measures, and that means not only informed and responsible criticism, but the freedom to speak foolishly without moderation. Okay, so that's clearly established case law. Look it up. Okay, no audio. You guys can't hear me? Oh, hold on. What can I get a? Can you guys hear me all right? Oh, okay. Am I okay now? Am I okay now, Kdu? Okay, appreciate it. Spot check. Can I have you on real quick, man? Because you know a lot about this stuff, and I would like to have you on. I'm sending you a link right now to discuss this about qualified immunity. I would love to have you on the show real quick. I just sent you a link, or anybody else for that matter, because again, I learn a lot from other people's channels as well. Spot Check News is absolutely brilliant in what he does. Safety Man, how you doing, brother? All right. So without further ado, I would like to bring on my guy, an absolute brilliant mind in legal manner, Mr. Spot Check. How are you?
Hey, good morning, everybody. Good morning. Just working. It's been a long weekend, so
It is.
turn
It
the whole
has.
thing
I
on
agree.
here. Great show, great topic.
I
Definitely
appreciate it, man. I
definitely
appreciate it.
required. Yeah.
Because it's so here's the situation. So a lot of my peers, when they watch my videos, and just friends or colleagues of mine, aren't really up to what qualified immunity is. They don't know what that is. They don't have any clue of what's going on. And I try to explain it to them as best as possible. It's pretty much uh they're anybody, and we're talking about any public servant, not just police, but any public servant, judges, governors, mayors, are protected by this non-legislated mandate bullshit. And for some reason, you can only have clearly established case law to actually get some type of legal remedies from them. So the floor is yours, sir.
Just a couple quick points I think are worth noting.
Okay.
Firstly, your barber, your gardener that mows your grass. All right. The guy that comes to your house to clean up all the junk once a year when you need some shit taken to the dump. These people have more insurance and liability than your servant that you have hired and that you pay to handle the affairs on behalf of the state and yourself. These people have more insurance and more liability and more to lose for accidentally cutting down a branch of a tree at your house or for fucking up your hairline than an officer does for killing you or falsely imprisoning you. They also have more training. Your barber spent 3 times more time in school than any cop in this country has to by qualification.
Agreed.
So
Agreed.
where is the justice in that? Where is even a modicum of justice when they can literally put you in the system because they want to, and because of whether it's retaliatory or they don't like you or they just want you out of their way? Now you have to go through this system, right or wrong, pay the money, do the time, go through all the bullshit of alleged jurisdiction, which they can't factually prove. And the cop has no onus to the duty to the state to actually make sure that the people that they're turning in should be there. And qualified immunity helps with that. We talked the other day about bail reform. I'm drinking out of a bail bondsman's mug this morning. You know, and that's a guy that gets it. You know, he gave me the mug because we've sat down and we've had discussions over this. He doesn't think his industry should exist. That's facts. And he makes millions a year off of this. And he knows it's bullshit. So it really comes down, everything, all of this starts and ends with resolving qualified immunity. If cops have a duty to make sure that the people that they put in there are indeed worthy of being arrested and detained and going through the system rather than do whatever they want and let the judge sort it out.
Okay.
How much stress and burden is on a judge when they see 70-80% of the cases are all bullshit and they know that they have to just violate and rescind people's rights to get them to go before there to ensure their capital? How is there any fairness and justice when every single traffic citation, that the cost of the fee associated with that ticket and charge goes into that judge's personal goddamn retirement fund? Every single one. Where's justice when there's actual financial gains to be made? There's none. So qualified immunity starts and ends all of this. If we don't have QI and cops have an actual duty to make sure they're doing their job appropriately and correctly, not only will the prison industrial complex come to its niche. You know, they say, oh, we have so much jail overcrowding, crime's so high. We have to build another jail. And then they just crowd it and crowd it and crowd it until they have to build another fucking jail. And it's a perpetuation of a financial system. This has nothing to do with justice. This has nothing to do with seeking justice or doing lawful things that are deemed required for a civil society. You know, if we got rid of qualified immunity, there would actually be an onus on these cops. There would actually be something to hold them accountable and put them in check. We're accountable. We mess up once, that's it. Your life is ruined. But they can do this every day, 10 times a day for years and make $250,000 a year to do it.
So my question for you, there's a lot of talk about bridging the gap and having a conversation and I guess meeting somewhere in the middle. Do you see that being possible? And if you do see that being possible or not being possible, what is a way about making that realistic?
The way this whole system is set up, it is not set up to help absolutely anyone outside of the system, period. That's why you see cops driving around with no seatbelts, speeding, weaving in and out through traffic, doing whatever they want. Who can say anything? And when you do, they retaliate.
That is true. That is true. And then well, I've seen a few of these brave cop watchers and auditors will actually pull over a few police officials, and then they're just like, "What? I don't understand. Like, I can do that, because I've noticed a few people or a few law enforcement officers, they'll click on their lights or whatever and then pass a red light, but they're not on an emergency call. They're just, they just feel like they can just do it because they can fucking do it. So, I mean, it's just simply wrong. But and I think also the problem is, it's a little bit off topic, but I think also the unions. It seems like the unions, which is a private entity, is more powerful than the actual police agencies itself. More powerful than the chief. The goddamn, like for instance, I have Sergeant Mark Spears of the Aurora Police Department. He's a sergeant, but I feel like every time that I've had a conversation with the chief about it, about this idiot, it seems like he's just kind of like, oof, I don't want to upset Mark, So how do you feel about that as far as unionizations? And I think wasn't it established in the 1960s, I believe.
Yes, and done so again, as you stated, it's not lawful. It was a ruling that set precedents that's been beat to the ground and has no merit and has no foundation in the Constitution.
Right.
On your point about unions, you're absolutely right. It's totally egregious. Benevolent associations. So if you talk about like the Police Benevolent Association, benevolent associations, and this is, again, I know you guys get sick of it. This is Black's Law Dictionary, Volume 4. Those having a philanthropic or charitable purpose, as distinguished from such as are conducted for profit, specifically benefit associations or beneficial associations. So this is about raising funds to cover court cases when their qualified immunity is called in, or when an officer is on the stand. These are organizations that raise money year round to defend cops when they violate your rights. These are literal organizations that are developed to fuck you up, to make sure you don't have a leg to stand on, to make sure that unless you are the ultra rich who would have already found a way to pay your way out of this, that you cannot fight their lawyers because they have more fucking money than you.
So
these
pretty much
agencies are the worst part of qualified immunity because they're the ones that support it.
Right. And those are probably funded by the elites, lobbyists, those sorts of type of people, correct? Or
they're paid for by the public, mainly. You'll see people driving around with the Fraternal Order of Police sticker on their window. That's because these people literally cold call homes and urge people to support their police. And they put you on a list if you don't, or if you say, fuck yourself, you're on a list. And that list shows up when they pull your name on a traffic stop.
Wow. Now, I did not know that. Whoa.
Because when they cold call people, those are public information lists that they're pulling from things like the phone records. All right. So phone book detail. They just sit there and call every house. And so when you see somebody with a FOP sticker on their window, they're a bootlicker. They paid to help support the qualified immunity system. That's where that money goes. It's not
so
that they're like.
Stay right there real quick. Stay right there. So when, like, for instance, if I were to go, I see something, see one of my citizens being abused, and I make a grievance to the particular police station, like what is it, the Internal Affairs. So when they ask me for my name, my full name or whatever, is that also that they're trying to put me on that particular list of okay, this person's a troublemaker, or we'll just have him on the next, he'll be on our hit list just in case we stop him for a quote unquote traffic violation.
So remember, everything goes back to banking terminologies, checks and balances, and contract law. There cannot be a contract without two parties. You can't make a claim against a person without being on there as the person that's making the claim. So you have a plaintiff, you have a defendant. All right. So even if it doesn't go into a court of law, that complaint came from somewhere. They need to have two dots to connect. Person with the issue versus the person that the problem is that started it. So your name will absolutely be on that complaint. If that complaint goes on that officer's record, being a complainant goes on yours.
And the officer can see that, right? So that they can see. And this is what I say all the damn time, because I don't give my name out. Because I always ask that question: Am I legally required to give that out? I always ask these questions because I want to make it very, very clear that you said I don't have to give my name out, because I know it, and that's why I don't fill out these forms as far as they have this one law in Colorado stating that to get it's called a CORA form. And basically, if you want to get any information from a traffic stop, like I was trying to get information from a traffic stop, these two high school boys were pulled over by like 4 units, and they were going through their car and all that type stuff. And I got a call from a citizen stating, hey, can you please go and check this out, because this doesn't seem right. They're going through their car and all those type of things. So I tried to make an anonymous request to get body cam and a police report, but they were like, oh, well, you have to sign your name, or you have to signature and then date. And then I'm like, okay, so if I signature, so I did that. I put a signature and date, right? And then I went back up there, and then we're like, oh, well, you got to put your name. Well, what the fuck? Well, hold on. It doesn't state that in the law. Well, it does state that the custodian who's in charge of the records can basically have rules established to where that if they want your name and your full name, so just in case you try to get any type of monetary gain for commercial purposes, they want to make sure that they can charge the right person if you do happen to do that.
And I'm like, not very versed specifically on the Colorado Open Records Act, which is what CORA is. But I am fairly confident that all 50 states regarding their records requests policies have two openings in there. One is if the information is readily available, it can be given to you on site simply by verbal request from the correct agent of the agency.
Yeah, you don't even have to write it down, right? You actually have to have them write it down so they can understand it.
Correct. And if it is readily available and they want to charge you a fee to digitize it, you can actually request to take your own photos right then, no charge. And as far as I know, all 50 states allot for both of those. Most people don't know that. And the people that you're requesting it from are going to do anything they can to stymie that and get your name and your money, period.
Wow. That's, I mean, I used to, I think I've seen the ugliness of this so-called justice system is when I actually worked in corrections, and I was trying to, again, do the right thing and making sure, I wasn't judging anybody that was already in there. The judge did that. My main focus was to correct their behavior and to put them back into society as better people. That was my main focus. But then I started, they started talking to me, and it was just like, no, this is a whole cash cow system. We're getting fucked. You know what I'm saying? This is, and I'm just like, no, we're here to help. And then I just started seeing shit, mainly from administration. And they were like, well, it just is what it is. You know, we can't do certain things. And I'm just like, well, hold on, wait a minute. There's a ranking system. Every time I look at that ranking system, it's the people that are the bosses of that ranking system. It is our dual responsibility to put these people back in society as better people. It's called corrective for a reason, corrections for a reason. But now I couldn't do it anymore because I had integrity. I literally had integrity, and I could not do it anymore, and I quit. I mean, was I wrong for that, I'm only one person.
I mean, if you realize you can't impactfully make a positive change, and if who you are changes and bends to the system that you're in because of a lack of willfulness to change or openness or even any avenue for you to impactfully inject change, then of course a thinking person would rather be who they are and true to themselves than to have to change who they are to bend and fold to a system that's unjust. I mean, integrity takes many forms, but just having the foresight to even think of that, there's millions of people that may see it, but they still go in there and violate people's rights and mistreat and abuse people all day long and turn their blind eye to the crime that occurs in the penal system. There's more crime in the penal system than out. Well, you put everybody that does crime together, of course, they're going to figure out ways to continue and perpetuate that lifestyle, particularly when their basic needs aren't being met. If you have security issues, whether it's food security, personal security, health security, that causes mental health issues too. So, it goes back to the same thing. I mean, the Bureau of Justice Statistics last write up on people that were literally intoxicated at the time of their arrest, and people that have chemical dependent issues that are deeply rooted are right around 30%. So 1 in 3 people that go in front of a judge is coming off of some kind of chemical dependency, or is potentially still high or intoxicated, or their brain's not functioning correctly from the day before when they were arrested. Like, we have people that we're asking, do you understand the charges against you? Do you understand the nature of this? Do you understand that we're going to waive your right to a speedy trial? These people don't fucking understand what any of that means at all.
And do you think this is why qualified immunity and certain and rights are not taught in which it should be a curriculum in our public schools, in any school really, from just in our regular public school system from K to 12? Is there it was set up for that reason, right?
Yeah, so I mean, schools, in my personal opinion, and just going back to their source, were designed during Reconstruction, when now you have free men, formerly slaves, that would pick and produce the raw material. They're being replaced by things like the cotton gin, which manually perform that task. That the reason, and I know this is, I repeated this last week, the reason Eli Whitney's name is because they could not have freed the slaves if they didn't have a fucking machine to go in there and pick and sort the cotton for them. Now they had this machine. Well, great. Now we can turn the slaves into people to produce textiles and do the dyeing and do all of the spinning and looming and all of these things. But we need to teach them how. So the first schools in America were textile schools, which were used to teach slaves. And that whole philosophy and methodology has been disseminated. So now when you go get a standard education in a state in the United States, you are getting just the basics that you need to work in the manufacturing industries or in agriculture or whatever the local zone near you is, so you can be a part of that standard blue collar workforce. And if you don't do that, and you don't go to college and spend that money to get a higher education level, to be in a higher certified career, then they would rather you be in prison, because it's $40-some thousand a year on a bond that pays to cover you to be in prison. So either way, they need to make a minimum of 40 grand a year off you. You're either going to work it and pay it in taxes as being a high value employee in some industry, or they're going to get it just by putting a bond in your name as you're issued as a ward of the state in a penal system, period. You're just money to them. That's why the whole Social Security system exists. That's why there's, I could go on and on. I don't want to dissuade us off the topic here at hand. But qualified immunity is basically a catch-all. Bring them all in. Get them all in here. We're going to let you bring as many people in as you can. You're not going to get in trouble. Whatever we can weed through and get to pay us some money or some time, that's great. And the more people you bring in, regardless of what the final outcome is, your violent versus non-violent arrest record is what's going to be there to show and validate your purpose. But even though cops don't even fucking solve crime, they solve less than 40% of actual crime. So what can they do if they can't be like Minority Report and preemptively stop someone from doing something? They have to wait till it occurs. And if even then when it occurs, they only actually can do anything 40% of the time, going back to school, 40% on a test is a fucking F. That's a failure.
That is. And I wait, because they just did. And welcome, safety man. How are you? I'm gonna get to you. Okay.
No problem.
Because there was a case study that was out in 2020 to where law enforcement officers, or in all agencies, they actually only charged 11%, and then major crimes they only solved only 2%. That's a problem, and that's why I feel okay. So you want to have these unions, right? So it should be a grading system, I feel. And not only that, but these officers need their own individual insurance coverage to where I feel 3 strikes you're out. I mean, hell, that's what they did in the 1994 crime bill to people of color, to tell you the truth, and mainly in the California area. But what I am saying, well, it was the federal law, but California went really, really hard on it. But if you violate somebody's rights more than 3 times, you do not have the honor to even carry that badge. So
that's giving them a little too much leeway, in my personal opinion. You got 1 shot. If I ruin somebody's life,
yeah,
they ain't giving me no more shots. I mean, you break up somebody's home and family and make them so destitute, and to have to subscribe all their available capital, which is limited already, to a system just to maintain their freedom, and it destroys their family and their homes and any chance even of children to have a future, you are a fucking pile of shit.
Right.
That's why I don't condone violence or murder against police officers. I think if they actually have integrity and hold themselves accountable, then the onus is on them to wake up every day, stare in the fucking mirror for 30 seconds, think about what they did the previous day, the lives that they ruined, and determine if they should continue living or if they should kill themselves on the spot. And they should do that every fucking morning. That should be their starting day. Am I doing the right thing, or am I a pile of shit?
Right.
And that's coming from somebody who's dealt with his own brother killing himself. So trust me, I know the pain that a family goes through with that. But honestly, they're all like, oh, police safety and everybody hates us. And you know what? If you realize you're a piece of shit and you're part of the problem and you take yourself out of the equation, guess what? All those people that hate you are going to fucking love you. If you can't change inside what's happening, and if you can't change yourself in that system to impactfully be appropriate, either quit or fucking stop life.
Exactly. I agree. And I want to get to safety, man. How do you feel about the conversation with qualified immunity? Do you agree with it? Do you think we should keep it, or do you think we should abolish it?
Honestly, I think we should abolish it, because everybody should be held by the same standards, citizens and cops. You know, we have our own qualified immunity in a way that we can stand up against them, but just like you were saying before, we don't have the money nor resources that the cops do, and judges and lawmakers have behind them to fight it through the legal system. And that's the problem. We are all created as equal, are we not? So we should all have the same. So no qualified immunity should be done. When I grew up as a child, that was 50 years ago, cops were not nearly like they are now. Yes, you had bad cops, but you had good cops that did their job. Now, it's crazy. I mean, I just watched, I don't know if it was on Fox News or one of them, but about the chief getting up there talking about all the young cops coming in now. Where's all the older cops that stood up against the bad cops and stood up for citizens? What's happening? You see it all over. Oh, we got cops quitting everywhere because they're afraid of qualified immunity being ended. No, a lot of them are quitting, in my opinion, is because they are the good cops, and if they stand up to the bad cops, they're the ones that get put out.
Well,
so they're like, I'm done with it.
Well, you know, and I would have to combat you on a little bit on the older cops. Here's the thing. The thing is, this has been going on. It's just now it's being recorded. So a lot of these older cops are some of the problem. Here's the thing. Here's why I say that is because they're quitting because they they can't do what they used to. You know what I'm saying? Remember, the qualified immunity was established, mandated in 1967.
Oh, that far back.
So those same cops that were who thought were community police and a lot of them were. Don't get me wrong. It's just that they didn't get caught because there were no cameras around. Because look at what we're doing. And I'll give you an example. I had an interview with CBS4, and they stated, I asked them, I said, how do you guys feel about cop watchers? How do you feel about First Amendment auditors? And they were like, honestly, you guys make our job harder because we're competition. Because we give the people the raw, unedited, unfiltered, unapologetic truth.
Very true,
there.
Yep.
And not only that, we're being proactive in our activism. We're not being reactive. We're not waiting until somebody gets their ass whooped and then we're saying we shall overcome. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yep.
So
we're doing it now. Yep.
So they're like, oh shit. And then they're even asking like, well, how are you guys getting to these calls so quickly? Well, if you listen to the police scanner, if you patrol the area, you know what I'm saying? That's what we do. You will get to it. For instance, the Boulder shooting. The Boulder shooting, prime example. The first person who got us the right coverage was a First Amendment auditor before the news crew were even there. They got the action. They just happened to be shopping at that particular time. But at the end of the day, they're the real news. And I'm just tired of these cops, you know, saying, oh, well, we don't get waved at anymore. We don't get saluted, or we people don't even, that people flick us off and we're just being mistreated and stuff like that. Well, it's called accountability. Hold your people. Silence is violence. So don't just, here's the thing. I left. The reason why I left because I was only one person, but I did speak up on it. I spoke up on it in staff meetings. I'm like, look, this is not right. I would say about 85% of the people that were in corrections were really trying, really trying, but because of our glitch in the system or something that was totally our faults, they would get fucked. And I would speak on it in staff meetings. I'm like, this is not right. This is not okay. So, but what I did do, if I'm not gonna be able to be helpful in the particular system, then I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna do my part, and I'm gonna be with the people. Simple as that. So, if they do quit, if these good officers do quit, speak out on it. Speak out on it. And there's a documentary on Hulu. I don't know if anybody's seen it, but it's a group of these officers, I think from New York, and they're speaking on quotas. And I feel entirely sorry for them, because they don't have a system to where they're allowed to be whistleblowers. That's another thing that we need to correct as well. We need to have a comfortable place for these police who really are doing good work to where they're not being retaliated against. Because a lot of what I'm hearing when I seen this documentary was that, look, if I say something, if I'm at a traffic stop and if I need help, and if I, quote unquote, tell on another officer, a bad officer, those officers, that's going to get back to the other officers. And if I'm in a dangerous situation, I won't get covered.
Yeah, I mean, there is that retaliation. For example, you see your boss or another employee doing something wrong, if you speak up, that you may be fired or something else. I mean, yeah, I can see that they have that, but that still comes down to you as a person. Do you look the other way and allow that to happen, or bring it up? And cops are held the same way. I mean,
Right.
everybody should be held the same way, but I do see your point that, if percentage wise, the way you're talking about it, like I was saying about old cops quitting and stuff, you might be right. I'd say probably 70% of them might be quitting because they don't want old stuff coming out. So by quitting, it doesn't come out. But there are still good officers. The very first good officer I ever seen hold another cop accountable, and this was 10 or so years ago, was a female officer pulled over another officer in a squad car for speeding, and the retaliation she got. She was the first good cop I seen. It was all over the media. I mean, there was a documentary made about it, but we don't hear about that no more.
You're talking about Buffalo, New York?
It might be the female cop.
Yeah, black lady.
Honestly, I can't remember if it was a black lady, but she pulled over another officer in a squad car doing 100 miles an hour. I'd have to, because I'm doing so much other stuff too.
Okay.
But she was the first, I'm like, hey, there's a good officer that pulled over another officer. And today I saw another video, and I can't recall the channel I was watching, but he was showing other officers that had pulled over other officers. His little what he was showing, different videos of body cams, but he was a good cop to stop him, but didn't go ahead and ticket him. It was stuff that happened in Florida, and it was just released today. I saw the video.
Okay.
But the good cops want to do a good thing. I mean, even good jailers want to do the good things, but the retaliation they get, they're afraid of. So either they're going to quit or stay silent. So that therefore makes them a bad cop for not saying or doing something about it. But the ones that do something and say something, next thing you know, they got fired because of whatever excuse these cops bring up, the union and stuff, because of the qualified immunity, that it does not get broadcast because the local media, mainstream media, don't want to show it. You said you talked to other medias about how come cop watchers do what we do, but how come they don't address the issue that they're calling us First Amendment auditors and all these other things? Are we not still media? Is not all United States citizens media? Yes, we are. Because one thing I see cops ask all the time in all videos I've ever watched, where's your media credentials? Where is it? There is no media credentials. Where do we file for media credentials? Where do we get permission to be able to do what we do? There is none. The Constitution says we have the right. Having a piece of paper or a card saying I'm media, and people have done that. They've gotten their own media credentials, and then they still sit there and say you're not media. Who the hell are they to sit there and say we're not media? The United States people, all citizens, are media at any and every time. It doesn't matter if you're doing it full time or part time.
Right. So spot check. How do you feel about I guess major news organizations not classifying us as media?
I don't think anything of it. For one, I don't watch any of their stories anyways. The ones that I do capture and catch are just RSS feeds based on certain keywords. So if you see me reposting from major media on my channel, that's how I found them. I don't think they're qualified to make any distinction on who is or is not qualified media. I see enough bullshit, that I've seen over the years that they espouse. Let's talk Associated Press, right? It's an association. It is basically a press release organization of what can and cannot be spoken on. And if it is to be spoken on, how so, and appropriate verbiage. That's why it's all the same everywhere. They vet photos, they vet stories. My concern is this: while everything that was said by Safety Man is correct, I'll go a step farther and say, yes, you can only fight that as far as the competence of the cop that you're dealing with. If he still wants to put you in jail for whatever reason, he will. I've gone as far as I am an ordained minister. I've gone as far as ordering the minister parking pass, as well as press pass and ministerial consulate card from the church organization. It's actually the monastery.org. Anybody can sign up and be an ordained minister online for free, and then you can order additional documentation packages. I actually got the same package for Eric Brandt as well as Johnny 5-0 for Christmas this year. So they're both ordained ministers. They both have the press pass that comes with that, etc. I've used that for years. So if you go and look at, granted, the audio got sniped about 20 minutes in, but there's a nearly 3-hour stream I did during the George Floyd protests in Oakland last year. And after the officers tear gassed the crowd and I was the only person left on the street, and I continued walking towards them after they attacked me twice, the sergeant on scene was very adamant that he was going to put me in jail if I didn't leave the scene. I can't be there to film. Where's your press credentials? I went over the whole First Amendment. I have a right. There's no credential. I don't need to show you shit. I showed him the First Amendment in the hardback copy of the Constitution in my hand, and he still wanted to violate my rights. So I pulled out my press pass and said, are there any other fucking dumb questions, or are we done here? And he turned around and walked away.
So let's stick with that.
Have power. And even if you print it off at your house and laminate it and use crayon, you can do that too. But to have something from another organization that can back you, that if they're going to violate my First Amendment rights, they're not only going to violate my First Amendment rights as a citizen journalist, they're going to violate my First Amendment rights under religion as a minister. How far do they want to take this? That's my question.
So okay, let's stick with that. As far as do you feel that these officers that are patrolling and who are law enforcement, do you feel that they're completely ignorant toward the law, or they're more upset that we know the law?
That's a good question. More upset. I would like to give them the benefit of the doubt that they are just ignorant. But it's quite clear when you are boisterous and demonstrate a full knowledge of what your rights are and that you are engaging inside of them, they get pretty upset when they know they can't touch you. It's the uninformed that have the most issues. When you're an informed person and can articulate that to them, and let them know that you know what they're doing is wrong or what they're attempting to do is wrong, they're not going to defend your rights for you. You have to be aware of them. They're not going to interject, well, you know, we would do this, this, and this, but since you're this, yeah, there's nothing we can do. You'll never see an officer say that.
Okay.
It's not going to happen. They're not going to interject notes of wisdom and securing your rights for you. All these cop cars say to serve and protect, but they all take the same fucking oath as our military to the Constitution. Nowhere in there does it say anything about serve and protect. And if you look up serve and protect in a law dictionary, and if you look up citizen and resident in a law dictionary, you'll see these things don't fucking make sense. They don't matter. They don't mean anything. If you go look at a police station and it says in trust and partnership with the community, go look up the word trust. Go look up the word partnership, and go look up the word community in a law dictionary, because all that is contract, contract, contract. Public trust is not how we feel a trust that they're doing their duty by us. Public trust is how much money we fucking give them every year to be around. And if we don't see a benefit in that, they stop getting that money. That is what a public trust is. You ever heard of a trust fund? That is what supplies and upholds this public trust, period.
Wow. Woo. Safety man, same question. Do you feel that they get more upset with us because they don't like being told what to do as far as them knowing the law, or do you feel they're ignorant to the law?
In my opinion, there's a lot of officers that know the law, and when you stand up for it and they realize that you know the law, they're going to try to find something else to hem you up, if that's what they're out to do, is to hem you up. I mean, I've seen this on other videos where they'll pull someone over for one violation. There's like a video I saw today where, and we've seen this before, a guy was pulled over for speeding, and the officer wanted the passenger's ID and stuff, and they fought that and says no, and this was in a Texas thing, according to Texas penal code, you know, such and such, unless there's a crime committed or you know, I'm not showing my ID. And it showed this officer going to his vehicle, calling his chief and everything else, and finding out himself that the passenger does not have to show ID, but yet he still wanted it. So yet in that video, he was finding a way, well, what can I do to arrest this guy and impound his vehicle and stuff? Well, if he doesn't sign the ticket, you know, and the guy sat there and said, well, if I sign this ticket, if I don't sign it, are you going to arrest me? He says, yes, I'm going to sign it underneath duress because you're arresting me. He says, no, you have to sign this ticket agreeing you're going to go to court. No, you're sitting there going to arrest me if I don't sign the ticket. So, you know, these the cops will know the law, but they will twist it. I mean, we know that in Supreme Court, I don't know all the different stuff. An officer can be lying to you while he's talking to you. He can sit there and say one thing and not be the truth, to sit there and get you to admit guilt to something you didn't do. You know, for example, hey, you know, this is the law and this is what it says you have to do. If you don't know the law, you're going to have to believe the officer because you believe the officer knows the law. But you know what? Officers know how to enforce violations, but when the violation is not credible to what they're saying, to what you did, and you point them out on it, they're going to do everything they can to find something else, and that therefore is a second charge. So I don't believe officers know very much about the law. I've seen videos where somebody is questioning the officer and they've actually pulled out a law book that talks about that particular statute to verify before they do something. But nowadays, all they want to do is pump up their chest and say, you have to do what I say because I'm an officer and I know the law. If they know the law, why are they breaking the law? You see what I'm saying? So,
well, and that's where it brings us to qualified immunity, because
But those officers also sit there and will sit there. You know, somebody that knows, say, even 10% of the law of what, you know, that they know a lot about what, you know, jaywalking, you know, the statutes or anything like that. The first thing that comes out of an officer's mouth is, "Are you a lawyer? Do we need to be a lawyer to understand the
Right.
Constitution? Do we need to be do we need to be knowledgeable with a degree in our pocket to be able to tell you we know what the law is?" And that's what they always pull up. And I've
That's
seen a couple videos to where they pulled over lawyers and then they sit there and still argue with the lawyer.
Yep. There was that one video. He was a lawyer, and he was a Uber driver.
Uber
Yep,
driver.
yep,
Yeah.
I've seen that one, yep.
That was a good video. Yeah, that's a great example, and they still don't give a shit. Like what is that? What does that particular question have to do with me actually knowing the law? Probably better than you, you know.
Yep.
And
And there are people out there that study the law, that understand the law and understand the Constitution and understand even their own Sydney ordinance than the cops do. But the cops believe that they know more than what you do because they wear a badge.
and you
They,
know
they,
what?
they,
And
they get this,
and
the thing of power. You know, that they have that power, they think. So people see a badge on them and say, "Oh, this officer knows every bit about the law."
right.
No, they don't.
And
They
some of
only know
these,
what they want to enforce.
and it's funny because some of these, and correct me if I'm wrong, but some of these so-called, prosecutors or lawyers or whatever don't even know some of the laws. Like you'll try to argue with them on certain things. Like for instance, I had a public defender because I was arrested in 2019 of November for the charge was unlawful conduct on police property, and I'm sorry, on public property, and all I was doing was recording police at the police station, outside of the police station, and so I would tell her about certain case laws, and she didn't even know. She was just like, you know what, I'm gonna get with a constitutional lawyer to have a better motion to defend your case. Because I told her, I said, look, I'm not taking any plea deals. Don't come to me about any pleas. I don't want to hear that shit. I understand that's what you have to do, but I don't want to hear it. The answer is going to automatically be no. I'm not taking any fucking pleas because I know I didn't do anything wrong. Which it's so it's kind of sad that we us cop watchers or auditors, whatever you want to call us, media, real media, even have to even put a little pressure even up on our lawyers to be like, no, this is wrong. You need to look this up. It's clearly established. Like this whole for instance thing, you know, can you back up away from my scene? I'm just trying to protect you. Bullshit. It's Gonzalez versus Castle Rock. Clearly established law that you are not legally required to protect any citizen anywhere. And if I'm not mistaken, I think there's a Florida. What was that Florida shooting, school shooting, and the officer, I think he was a sheriff, a deputy, and he actually ran away from the school. He didn't protect any of those children, and he's fighting to get his job back. I don't know the update to it, but he's using that particular case law to where that, hey, I'm not legally required to protect anybody.
Yep.
How do you feel about that, Spot Check News?
So I've had a DA argue that I was a menace to society, a monster that needed to be stopped. And the very next time I walked in, the case was dismissed without prejudice in the name of justice. All because I argued they lacked jurisdiction and one particular Supreme Court ruling. You can't just argue English with these people. They're not speaking it. They speak legalese. and they only understand precedents from case law. So when you tell them that and they say they need to seek a constitutional attorney, fucking kind of attorney are they if they're not constitutional? What do they know or practice in if it's not constitutional law? Why is there no onus on them to know this or defend you in this? Because of the bar. That is another fraternity, just like the Fraternal Order of Police. It's the same thing. You can't step outside the rules of the game. A judge is a referee in a court, like a tennis court, and you go back and forth and back and forth. And the flow of it determines who's won, ergo the checks and balances. And when they say the weight of the court or the weight of the case or the weight of the statement, it's literally math, plus and minus, and whichever side has the higher score at the end wins the game. And the referee is there to say what is in and out of bounds of play. So you have attorneys that understand that their onus for their certified standing in the court is to play the game. It doesn't matter who wins or loses. If you pay a defense attorney and you still lose, do you get a discount? So they get paid either way, regardless. I have a buddy facing a case. I think it's the dumbest thing in the world what he did, but he still has a right to at least competent counsel, at least a competent defense. I just told him, I was like, give this one piece of paper and this one picture of this native Indian land trust map of California to your attorney. Tell him you want to argue jurisdiction. He did so. His attorney said, that's interesting. I've seen this actually done before. Let me get back to you. He would not return a call for weeks. Finally, my buddy got a letter in the mail that he recused himself from the case. He's not going to move forward with any defense. Because he can't go in that courtroom and put on the precedents for the state of California that they lack jurisdiction. So, he's
exactly.
Making
they don't want to put themselves in that predicament. You know, just like you're saying, if there's evidence and a good lawyer knows they can get you off, but they don't want, they rub elbows. Every lawyer rubs elbows with DAs and DAs rub elbows with the judges. And they're going to sit there and say, don't touch this case. You can win, but we don't want them to win. So excuse yourself.
Yep.
You know, and that's how I see that. You know, you can pay a lawyer $1 million. And if he decides he doesn't want to do anything with it, even though you will win, is because they're too busy rubbing elbows, and it's all about the numbers and the money.
Okay.
Because they don't want.
I just received an email from my attorney. Let's see what he's got to say. Oh, it looks like they're going to actually add me to this larger case from May of last year that occurred at the protests. Okay. And it looks like they're also going to try and move forward with my last Cop Watch video as well for Bain Act of violations, 1983, prior restraint. So, yeah, I mean, if you find a proper attorney, but here's the thing, like, it took me a fucking year to find an attorney that would take my case. And if you watched my arrest, he's a ballsy son of a bitch for taking it. He really is. He's putting himself on the line to take my case, to add that to it. But my case is a little different. They had no clue that there were officers from other jurisdictions in Oakland during those protests. My video shows 2 other counties and 3 other city jurisdictions in Oakland policing the streets. I'm on camera asking one, what department are you with? Berkeley. Why are you outside your jurisdiction? He says nothing. He exercises his right to remain silent. I ask him again, and his only response is, why are you yelling? He can't answer that. He knows they ain't supposed to fucking be there. And so when my attorney saw that, he was like, what do you mean Contra Costa County was there? What do you mean Berkeley PD and Alameda Sheriff's or Hayward police were there. I'm like, yeah, all these other jurisdictions were there. You didn't know that? And they're like, we had no idea. Do you have proof of this? So there's so much going on that's trying to be swept under the rug and not handled and addressed, that, you know, it's just a game. And when you start stepping up and exposing it, that's when you put yourself in harm's way. I'm absolutely 100% positive I will be murdered by a police officer at some point during what I do. Absolutely. There's no question in my mind. Hubris and ego are very dangerous. And when you make someone who thinks they have a standing above you feel belittled, then they get in their feelings. And when you want, you know, you've seen feelings police stand up for people saying, oh, he doesn't have my permission to film, or I feel attacked, or I'm scared. And then they want to be feelings police. Wait until it's their fucking feelings.
Right. And that's why I tell, you know, some of my friends that have watched my videos, and, you know, again, a lot of my friends of the Black community and people of color, and they're in my family, they're like, yo, what the fuck are you doing? Like, we don't fuck with police like that. We were programmed not to even mess. We don't do that. That's not in our culture.
You said the right word.
I had to tell them. I was just like, look, man, I'm at peace. I had to go into knowing that I'm doing this, that my life can be taken one day. You know what I'm saying? You can't be naive and thinking that you're going to do this activism work, and this particular activism work, thinking that a cop won't take your life. So you have to go in there thinking like, okay, this could be my last day from filming this particular incident.
You nailed it on the head when you said that your friends were programmed. They programmed them to not stand up.
Yeah.
And it's the unprogramming that is happening now, and that's the reason why the stepping more on what we're doing, because we're unprogramming them. People are realizing you can stand up for your rights.
Right.
And they realize, you know, especially George Floyd and everything else, that if it was not for people out there videoing, that would have been swept under the rug as well as everything else.
I agree 100%, and not having the mainstream news fit their narrative because they want to be politically and correct. And we look, we don't have a dog in the fight. We just want to live. We simply want to be left the fuck alone and being able to travel to A and B. Because I even think they're even talking about, there's even talks of them of police not even being involved as far as certain traffic stops. Like if they see a fucking a fucked up tail light, you know what I'm saying? Not even getting involved. And like I said, we have, well, hold on, we got about 5 more minutes. But I wanted to get this question out, and I'm gonna start with you, Safety Man, and I want your input on it as well. Spot Check News. This George Floyd bill that's sitting in the Senate right now. Do you feel that things will change? Well, first of all, do you know what's in the George Floyd bill? Have you read the bill? Let's start with that question.
I have not read the George Floyd bill. That's something that I need to try to find and do. But also changes that are going to be going on in the George Floyd bill, I don't know. But because we only got a few minutes, I'll shorten this up. That maybe not everybody knows about, but here in Oklahoma, as of November 1st, anybody that records an officer or a government official, if you post any of it, facial recognition or any of that, you can go to jail. So it's going to be illegal to film cops, and the way they got it worded, any government officials as well. So here in Oklahoma is the one step that's going to try to stop the kind of stuff that has shown what has happened with George Floyd and has happened with not just George Floyd, but everything that we've always done.
Okay. So let me ask you then. Let me ask you another question real quick, since I know we're real short on time. But now that that's going to be a state law, what are you guys doing about it to combat that? Or is anybody issuing a lawsuit on this particular bill or this law, or what is the next step? Because I did hear about that and it's fucked up.
Yeah, there's I can't remember the organization's name as far as I know, they're trying to fight it in court, but I honestly don't know what's happening. And as for the, people say community, but as for anybody else as to what they're doing to fight against it or stuff, I'm not sure. I'm one man, and everybody
I hear
knows
you.
me as safety man because I back up everybody videoly, electronically when they go live and stuff in case the video gets taken down, someone has a copy. I've done some audits and cop watches, but I don't get out there and do it like other people do. But even that may be taken away because these laws that are starting to come in effect, and one is here in Oklahoma that it's 6 months in jail and $1,000 fine for the first offense, and after that it doubles to where it eventually becomes a felony as well.
Whoa.
As to what's happening, as to if there's going to be change, I don't know I haven't really heard anything, and I don't know if it's because all media is keeping it quiet, and that's the reason why nobody knows what anybody's doing about it.
And honestly, to tell you the truth, the only reason why I found out about it was watching cop watching. As far as looking at other, they're not talking about this on the mainstream news. Spot check. My question for you is somewhat the same thing. Do you know what's in the George Floyd bill, and do you support it? Do you think it'll make a difference?
I haven't read it in its entirety. I have read some synopses and some pundit conversations. And it is on my agenda to do, however. As far as I understand it, it states that it's stripping it away, but it really is just providing more loopholes, in my personal opinion, at least from what I've read thus far. It's supposed to make it easier to sue them. However, I feel that there's always going to be verbiage. It's like if you go to Vegas. It doesn't matter how well you know math, how well you can count and cycle cards in your head and shit. The house always has an advantage. The house will always have an advantage.
I agree.
And they're never going to make an impactful change that's going to give them less than that. The people will always be the ones that have the burden of having to face and challenge all of this, regardless. Is this going to do anything about all of the fictitious stops and detainments and small trumped up charges that they throw at us? Or is this only facing, they accidentally, like the one that in Iowa accidentally shot a child instead of the family fucking dog? Or cops that, like the one just got busted for distribution of methamphetamine while on the clock.
Right.
Or stealing drug dealers' money and not charging them, taking their money and their product. Like, does that give any allotment for all of the other bullshit that goes on? Or is this only if there's a false death? Does this really encompass all of the problems that we really face with these motherfuckers, man? There's so much to this. And, going back to bail, like, all of the cash bail has to do with, they found you in here. Somebody has the onus. There is a bond on this to cover the charge, because it's all banking terms, of you being incarcerated, because they put you in there because the officer has immunity. So the officer can't be held liable and wrong and incorrect. So if we switch that around, where instead of you having to have a bond on your personal liability to get yourself out of that situation, if the officer has the bond and the onus to make sure that the arrest to begin with is factually stated and within the bounds and constraints of the law, then honestly, a cashless bail system would be appropriate in that kind of a situation, because an officer's integrity and the facts of the matter are going to be much more taken into effect than them just say, oh, well, you can just work that out with the judge. We don't give a fuck. It doesn't make a difference to us. But people don't understand that too, you know?
I agree. And safety man, and you're out of Oklahoma, correct?
Yes.
So whatever we need to do to support you, brother, as far as the Oklahoma, because you need to share this. Everybody, you need to if again, go subscribe to Safety Man and Spot Check News. They have really a lot of great stuff, a lot of coverage. They got a lot of good on that particular uh, uh, on any situation, the bail situation, qualified immunity. There are certain cases right now, and we need to support the state of Oklahoma to where that we need to combat and fight this, even if we all need to go out there, the cop watch community, and go out there and protest. I'm for it, but because this is crucial, because if they'll do it in one state, it'll be a trickle effect. They'll do it in other states, and we cannot afford to have that happen. And not only that, that's also in the Oklahoma is in the 10th Circuit Court, and we currently have public photography cases currently now as far as combating that. So because we don't have an established law in the 10th Circuit Court regarding public photography. And that's why I state, hey, guys, instead of just settling, it's imperative that we take it all the way so we have something on record stating that, yeah, you can't do this shit to people. But at the end of the, I want to thank, I wanted to guys give you guys a final last word. And before we leave, Spot Check News, I'll start with you.
I don't know if you can approve the link I just put in the chat, but it does reference back to what's going on with that bill in Oklahoma. If you can approve that. If not, it's on the blackwallstreettimes.com. Firstly, free Eric Brandt, and just do your due diligence, people. What you think this is, what you think is going on, what you think words mean, what you think the system is and how it works and functions is not. None of it. And you may be awoke to that and understand that statement by now, but what you feel and think are two different things. And what reality is, and the basis of all of this, and the history of it, how far back it goes, and what it's actually designed for. You know, once you start waking up to that realization, you do feel empowered. You can't feel fear, because that's all they thrive in. You know, everything is based on vibration. So just understand what words mean, do your due diligence, and never ever give up this fight, because the future of our children's children depend on it. And if you want to see change, be the change that you want to see, and let fear go, because all they can do is kill you. And after they kill you, they can't control you. So I don't know. I really think the root of everything that is fucked up in this system really starts with qualified immunity, because if we have less people going through a system where people have no accountability for the lives that they damage, things will never change. And that includes everything from bail reformation to us not being, quote unquote, the freest country in the world with, quote unquote, the most fucking people incarcerated on planet. And so
you bring up a valid point on that. Absolutely.
If this is the freest country in the world, then we're all fucked. So I'll leave it on that.
Thank you, Spot Check News. I appreciate you. Please like, subscribe, and go to his channel, support his channel. He does great work over there. Safety Man, last final word, please.
Well, it's like Spot Tech News is saying, definitely free Eric Brandt, because he's one of the he's the head stepping stone of what has brought out people doing what they're doing. On the other hand, on the other subject, you know, House Bill 1643, I believe it was, Spot Check News might have put it in there, but that's the bill that talks about it's being illegal to film cops and officials in their capacity, making it illegal. It's something that we do need to address. We've heard a lot of people saying that, they will be up here when that time comes, and it will end up coming down to that, that people are going to have to basically sacrifice themselves, and they will be arrested when they do this, that we must be there to back them up as well. But we also need people in the background to help the people that are doing this, because there's a lot of people out there that are willing to sit there and do that, but they don't have the backing. It makes it even harder. If you believe in standing up for your rights and you're one person that can't go out there and do the filming and stuff, at least back up the people that are doing it one way or the other. I mean, that's pretty much how I can sum it up. And I appreciate you having this panel, and keep up the good work.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Safety Man. And again, guys, please go subscribe to his channel. He does really great work. We need his support, especially in his state, because again, they are criminalizing photography, and it's right, and it's not right, and it's the first damn amendment. And if this particular situation, I think somebody unfortunately does need to get arrested on this, so they can bring it all the way up to Supreme Court, and we can throw this dumbass law out. So, Safety Man, I appreciate you joining the show. I appreciate you.
Well, thank you. And it will come out more. There probably will be more people arrested, because when people are out there protesting, there will be people out there with cameras live streaming, and just like what they're doing with I hate to keep going, but just like they're doing with what happened on June 6th, they're arresting people from videos that they're able to capture. Well, that's exactly what they're going to do when this law comes in effect. They're going to sit there and round up anybody that has streamed it. Say you restreamed a stream like I do, they're going to sit there and go after you. I mean, if you go to my channel, you'll see I have no videos up because I've taken them down temporarily, but I have them all backed up. So if they shut my channel down, I do not lose all that backup video, because there's video in there that is not saved because YouTube has shut them off and they've lost the videos, and I have them. But that's the other type of support as well. If you see something, film something. If you're on your phone and you see something, use another phone or another device and record that, because you never know, it could be lost. But thank you very much.
I appreciate you. Thank you. And again, thank you for joining the show. And I'll close out. And again, thank you for what you do, Safety Man.
Thank you for what you do too.
So at the end of the day, guys, I think we had a really, really exciting show. I hopefully you guys are up to date as far as what qualified immunity is, and I appreciate you guys for joining us. I thought this was very informative, and again, this is just the second episode. We're gonna keep going. We're gonna keep thriving. If you like what you've seen today, if you like you, as far as Team Kdot, that's who we are. Your boy DJ Kdot in the building. Please support the channel. And also, if you want to donate, Cash App, DJ Kdot 123. Okay. Thank you guys for joining the channel. It's your boy DJ Kdot, and I'm out. 1.